Hello everyone, thank you. I will be talking about how Unicode encoding is becoming a problem and proposing a solution. I know Unicode can be, who enjoys the experience of typing the Mongol Bichik on a keyboard? Okay, that was a trick question. Nobody likes it. It's terrible to type because there's so many issues. Yeah, so we'll get to it.
Mine is actual mechanical typewriter.
Oh yeah, she has a Mongol script typewriter, so that's another great story. I wrote this paper with Dr. Marissa Smith from the Central Asian Working Group of UC Berkeley, who has not unfortunately been able to present with us, yeah, she sent her regards. So this is the outline of my speech. Go to the introduction, just to make sure we're all on the same page. There are a lot of sort of esoteric details that I'll try to cover. Then I'll talk about how the rebirth of Mongol Bichik started and is still failing, and offer Todo script as a solution. Not to do script, it's Todo, that's how it's pronounced, although it's easy to mispronounce it. And then go over the political history, because adopting Todo script may not be easy because of its history, and then some implications and future studies needed. So before we begin, let's get acquainted with the characters. Because they have so many names, Mongol Bichik is also known as Hodum, named by Unicode, but in the 1990s, the Mongolian government called it the Uyghur Mongolian script or Uyghur script. And a lot of modern academic papers started calling it just Mongolian script, a literal translation of Mongol Bichik. Then we have the Todo Bichik or Tod Bichik. Okay, that would source that we decided here use the translation clear script, but it's also Todo script is the main way it's referenced in Unicode consortium's reference. Speaking of which, Unicode is, when we talk about Unicode, it's the technical consortium that planned to make all the characters that humankind made, sort of compile it all into a one code chart. So every character is encoded, no matter what language, what alphabet, what writing system it is, it's all encoded into the keyboard for computer devices. So that's what we do. And when I say the government of Mongolia, of course it's the parliament, but also some of the implementing authorities, where our Ministry of Digital Transformation, especially currently, and the Communications and Information Technology Authority, or has gone from Beijing to that. So let's get to it. Picture this scene. In 1990, Mongolia had essentially transitioned from the socialist communist government to a democratic one, and they said, you know what, we'll shed ourselves of the old colonial Russian model of culture. We'll revive our traditional script. And they issued this resolution number 285, which planned to transition the whole country to Hodum script by 1994. So 4-year plan, right? And one of the ways to achieve it was to teach Hodum script in schools. So some of you who were in school during these times may remember it as having to learn Hodum script also. Coincidentally, in 1991, the Unicode Consortium was established, and as mentioned before, its mandate was to create a new international multilingual text encoding standard. A lot of stuff happened, but basically, in 1996, Mongolia and China submitted a joint proposal to encode what's called Mongolian character set. So fast forward to 2020, the government of Mongolia issued a resolution that ratified the third iteration of the program. So National Program for Mongolian Script 3. Remember, we had the first one in 1990 or 1992, yeah. So what the program planned to do was that the government of Mongolia would adopt a dual record system by 2025. Now, what year is it? 2024. So they're going to do it in a year. But what they're going to do is essentially not a full transition, but a policy of digraphia, which basically limits the Cyrillic plus Potom script to official documents only. And as of 2024, I don't have any survey or data to back it up, but based on very perfunctory analysis or skimming, there's no usage. There's very minimal usage, digital usage of Potom script in Mongolia and China. So after 28 years, typing in Potom is still very confusing and very glitchy. For reference, this is the Mongolian Unicode block that I was talking about. So imagine Unicode as a very huge tapestry in which all writing systems, all alphabets, all abjads or scripts are encoded, each and every one. So before we go back to Unicode, let's all talk about the Mongol bitching. What do we mean when we say Mongol bitching, right? As we all know, in 1204, when the Mongol Empire was established, Genghis Khan appointed a Uyghur scribe, Katatonga, to create the Potom script. For the purpose of consistency, I'm just using Potom as the word for Mongol bitching. And it's considered the classical script. In 1587, a Half scholar, Ayush Ghosh, made a Gallic variant, or Alik, as you know, right? In 1632, a Manchu scholar adopted and repurposed the Mongol bitching and created a Manchu script. In 1648, a Zolarian scholar, Zaya Bandit Nahajat, adopted created a new iteration or variant and called it Todo, or clear script, because it was clear, and I'll go into it more later as well. In 1905, a Buryat scholar, Agwan Gorgiev, created another iteration called it the Bagindra script. And then it's not really an iteration of Mongol bitching, but it's a totally different system. But in 1946, the Mongolian People's Republic adopted transition into the Cyrillic Mongolian alphabet, right? Basically based on scholar Ben Nusser's work. So let me go back to the rebirth of Mongol bitching and its issues. In 1994, People's Republic of China proposed the Mongolian script encoding system to Unicode, and in doing so, they included both Topa and Manchu, which is now called Shibe scripts. A year later, Mongolia was also, planning to create its own standard of Mongolian scripts into a digital system, and the system was actually called Universal. The system was supposed to be in compliance with the Universal Multi-Octet Coded Character Sets. So this was done by the Mongolian National Institute for Standardization and Meteorology. This is a screenshot from the eventual joint proposal that I mentioned earlier, and basically how the proposal is prefaced is there was a working group meeting in Tokyo. It's for the ISO, International Organization for Standardization. In a meeting in Tokyo, Japan, both China and Mongolia, or presumably the representatives, met, and they realized they were working on the same problem, and they decided to combine their efforts and submit a single standard. But what's really interesting about this proposal is they had this principle of no information loss. As you can see, it's saying all letter forms of the Mongolian, Todo, Shibe, and Manchu are coded, including all initial, medial, final forms of the letters, and independently used character variants. So, and another very telling statement, I guess, is Mongolian has a very particular feature, which is rare in the other scripts. Some letters have different presentation forms under the same context, and those form variants are of different meaning. This is not predictable by ordinary context analysis. So, all the way from this proposal in 1996, you can see that these people who are pitching the Mongolian characters are saying, this is a very complicated script, right? And this still is the stance taken by Unicode developers, people, and actually one of the reports said that Mongolian script is the most complex script ever developed by the Unicode Technical Consortium. So, yes. So, for the record, this is the Kodum or classical Mongolian script's default keyboard state. If I can see the mouse. Okay. So to the left of the key 1, there is a square key, and that's the first free variant selected 1. And to the left, to the right of the 0 key, there's an NNBSP. And under, to the left of the return key, there is free variant selector 1. Sorry, that one was, this one was 3. And so on. So you can see right off the bat, there are a lot of formats and additional characters, special characters that are unexplained and unintuitive. I'll go to it in a few slides. And also, when you click on the shift key, you can get additional characters as well as additional format characters, such as the Mongolian vowel separator and the pre-variant selector 2. So, what are the problems with Unicode encoding? As demonstrated by Baatarkhuu et al. In 2011, basically the way fonts are encoded are accompanied by so many of these context-specific rules that when they're rendered by different fonts, especially open-type fonts, there are a lot of issues, a lot of glitches. They're not morphing or glyphing correctly. And then there's only a system font for Windows and no release from Mac or other major vendors like Adobe. And the only system font for Windows, Mongolian Berkeley, also is too small to read. It's not really intuitive. There's also, as Jan mentioned, what's called a multi-to-one confusion. So if you see this word over there, again, it's very, very small to read, right? Is a word that reads as undistinct or undistinct. But it can also be read as undesodang, right? Because, O, U, A, are written the same. Tede is also written the same. The other way around, there's another problem. Someone could type ondesudang and then make it be read as undesuten. And that's an issue because it can be contextually understood as one word, but it would be typed differently on the keyboard, and that's also known as the one-to-multi unpredictability. The way these become issues is when there's a database or a corpus, digital corpus of Mongolian script texts. These different spellings or homographs are all logged as different words. They can't be parsed the same word. So an accumulation of knowledge or parsing of text would be very hard, right? Everyone, even the word Mongol is written differently. And also, even contextually, the one-to-multi unpredictability impacts the security of Mongolian script typing because someone could potentially phish other users through not really encoding through what's seen as a correct word, but in actuality typed in as a different word. And then I will also go over the the format characters that I just mentioned. There's zero with non-joiner and zero with joiner. Basically, these help you. You know how Mongolian people like to include the initial of their surname as just one letter, and sometimes they want only the medial form of a letter. So if it's if they want the medial form of it should be only one tooth, right? If you can't achieve that just with typing the letter you use the zero with non-joiner or joiner. And then there's Nurulu, which is used for compound names or proper nouns. For example, Dr. Sarul, his name would have to, in Cyrillic, there's a hyphen there. In Mongolic, there should be a nirul there between the word Sarul and Irgun. And that's a chip with nirul. And Mongolian vowel separator is basically it should be called Tatsluk toggle or Tatsluk toggle because the backward tail and the forward or e are sometimes, it's all encoded in one letter and it has to be graphed with only with this special format character. And then there's the narrow non-break space, which functions as invisible M dash to lift the first letter of a particle, and the free variant selectors 1, 2, 3. Basically, these toggle between different glyphs of few characters. So, say the word da, right? Da used to have no dots apparently according to info developers in the 13th century steles and texts. So if you want to write like a 13th century text on a single keyboard, you have to use free variant selector character. So these are very unintuitive, unexplained, and in our opinion, not really necessary. And there's a different solution, which is the Todo script. So Todo script, also known as Polybichic or clear script, could be a better candidate than the classical script for government Mongolia's dual script policy. And this is because Todo script is an iteration on Photo script. And if you remember the slide from earlier, there were many iterations on the Todo classical script in the 16th century, both by the Manchus, Adigali, Ayushkush, and then Zayabandit Nampachans in order. So, particularly the author, Zayabandit, because the Todo script iteration was made after Adigali and Manchu were already promulgated, he must have been aware of the variants and then maybe improved on them. So, for example, for reference, this is what Todo script looks like. Not really different from the classical Photo script, but there are some key differences, which I will go to now. So, what makes Todo script different from the Hodom or Mongolic? Basically, it separates the graphemes for O, U. So that, right off the bat, eliminates the polyphony of vowels, which has been causing the biggest issues in the digital encoding process. And then there's also separation of consonants like te and te with no position-based allographs. It introduced a new way to mark long vowels for compact and closer to enunciation writing. It also made the post-syllable g. So for masculine g, you have two teeth, and for feminine g, you have a cheek and forward tail, right? But Todo script just made it one. That simplifies so many things. Not to mention making the FES control keys unnecessary. And Kara, Georgi Kara, in his book, The Books of the Mongolian Nomads, also mentioned that the Hungarian people had already started using the modernized style of writing, namely the fusing of suffixes. So in the 17th century in Hungaria, the letters from Altomoshat showed the word iftinese. So had it been written in classical script, it could have been it would probably be written in Ejed, right? This is how we write it, the particle separately. And And yes, there were differences of a similar style in the 19th century Mongolian writings, but when Mongolians are bringing back the Mongol Bichik in the 20th century or 21st century, there is a tendency to adopt a more conservative approach and bringing back a lot of these medieval rules, really reverting back to more complicated processes. But the point of this slide is to just tell you that Iftinese is very similar, much more closer to the modern Cyrillic spelling, which is just Ifnes, right? This is one of the reforms made by Dr. Bendusur. So, but what is the problem? If Todo script is so much better than Todo, why don't we write it? Well, there's no keyboard support. Even though Todo is encoded in Unicode, there is no official keyboard support made by major vendors. There are some made by smaller vendors, but no major organizations support it. And in order to understand the reason behind it, we have to understand the history and the dynamic behind the clear script and its positionality against its neighboring culture. Because remember, Todo was written by a country that doesn't exist anymore. So, Todo script was invented by Zaya Bandar Nafajans, as mentioned before, and he was the adopted son of a Western Mongolian Khan named Baibas in 1648. He was sent to Tibet by his foster father. When returning from Tibet, he had learned so much about the Nom, or the Dharma, and deep knowledge of the Tibetan language and writing, and he translated so many Buddhist scriptures into Mongolian and taught to both Oirat and Half Mongolian officials. In fact, he was also a key attendant in the Oirat Half Mongolian Assembly in 1640, 8 years before he created the Todo script. And Georg Kara actually conjectures that it is likely that Zaya Bandar intended the Todo script to create a new super-dialectical written coin that was nearer to the spoken Mongolian languages of his time than the old Roman. And this is because the Todo script has peculiarities which are more characteristic of Eastern or Half dialects than the contemporary Oirat class. So he really wanted the Oirats or Zungar and the Half Mongol to have a single alphabet. But Zungaria eventually came in conflict with both Half Mongolia and the Qing Empire, and it saw not only what ensued was not only a genocide-level decimation of the Oirat population, but also the destruction of the entirety of the Todo script corpus. So all the texts that Zaya Bandar himself translated, none of them survived, except for one text. And a key source was taken from Tapir, and also, which was in itself sourced from Peter Perdue's book. After completing the conquest of Zungaria in the 1750s, the Qing Emperor Qianlong ordered that all Oirat texts in Zungaria should be collected and brought to the capital in modern-day Beijing. They were used as the basis of an official Qing retelling of Oirat history and were destroyed. So, very, very big destruction that just screeched the Todo development to a halt. And what followed afterwards is a very tragic trajectory. Most Oirats became subjects to the Russian Imperium and to the Qing, and Todo script became an Oirat script for Soviet imperial administration. And even in the 20th century, Todo script was officially discarded at several points. In the Soviet Union, Kalmyk people had a Cyrillic alphabet in the 1920s. In Mongolia, from 1912, Todo script became discouraged as a sign of Oirat separatism. And in China, a decision was taken in 1981 to gradually replace Todo script with the standard Mongolian script, as mentioned by Dr. A conclusion: with every phoneme of the Mongolian language mapped to an independent key and the alphabet already included in Unicode standards, The state of Mongolia can arguably create applications and standardizations with relative ease, and the authors believe the adoption of Todo script by the government of Mongolia would streamline the processes of digital encoding, clerical reporting, and a wider means of digital communication, not just for citizens of Mongolia, but for diasporic communities who have traditionally used the Mongolian script or its various versions. But in order to do this, more support should be dedicated to the Todo script's keyboard layout development. And I will briefly go over to some implications and future studies that are needed. Basically, it will take, because Mongols essentially created no less than 10 different alphabets throughout its history, converting them back and forth into Todo, Cyrillic, or Hold'em, what have you, would require a lot of large institutional effort and academics and a range of publics to digitize these texts with glyphs resembling the source text. And issues that require more research are one, the usability among the different diasporic Mongolians. Obviously, the ordered Mongolians, mainly in Kalmykia, Xinjiang, and West Mongolia, would be much more open to adopting the script, but the Inner Mongolians, Chahar, and communities in Inner Mongolia would mean they would have to lose the Hold'em script that they have gained their literacy on. So because they learned to write as Hold'em with 5 vowels, well, Todo having 7 vowels might be different. Or is it? I mean, we need to research it more. 2, we have to decide on the degree of fidelity to the orthogonal rules to preserve the Oirat dialect. Should we repurpose it fully for the Half speakers or the current Mongolian speakers, or should we save anything, keep it open to other, keep it open and accessible to other communities, other dialects? And remember, there are no black and white answers, but complicating things is also a way to stall the encoding process as well. And also, should we just merge or revise the other variants, even though even though the Hold'em script is faulty, maybe it will triumph. And to support that argument, I'd like to talk about the QWERTY keyboard, the QWERTY, when Scholz and the Remington, when the first typewriter that became massively adopted, was challenged. It was challenged so many times, right? The first creation of the first typewriter went through so many inventors or inventor wannabes, and then it took on so many variations. And QWERTY was challenged by several other layouts, namely Dvorak and Azerty and so on. But QWERTY, even though, despite its logical flaws, it triumphed because it was too hard to transition. So would that be the case with Hold'em? So yeah, those are the questions that need to be studied further. And these are the references from our slides. And then thank you for your attention.